really understand the general plan, you really have to read the companion piece that goes with it. And those are the guidelines that were set out in the legislature. It's a great read, it's online. There's something in there for everybody, from bicycles to ballparks, citizens, density, whatever. The biggest problem with our city plan and why it failed the last time, it was just too massive. It was too detailed. Why was it detailed? I blame city staff. The developer-driven city staff, who can put all this stuff in there, work with the development community to get everything done or not done, get in their cars and drive home to Ahwatukee or Chandler, because not very many of them actually live here. But if there's a problem with the general plan, if there's a problem with how these projects are presented to council, lied to council, lied to the general public, it's in the city staff. I've watched this for a long time. The voters rejected it because it wasn't what we wanted for our neighborhoods. If we just followed the general plan that's in place right now, we wouldn't have these issues. It's all right there. Compatible neighborhoods, density, traffic, it's all there. It's almost a perfect document. The problem is that we don't follow it. The council looks the other way. Just listen to the neighbors. Be responsive to the people who actually live here. And we won't have these problems anymore. Thank you.
Anybody next?
I guess I'll go.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Millhaven.
The general plan, as Jennifer said, is 200 pages. And it is a very arduous read. And because it's my job, I've read it several times, but I imagine that the average citizen isn't going to invest the energy to read such a difficult document. So one is we have to make it shorter, we need to make it clearer, and we need to make it easily understood. But the other thing is the whole conversation around the general plan is filled with misinformation. And you know, somebody said, well, this means that my neighbor can build a gas station, they can knock down their house and build a gas station. That is not so. But if you have a 200-page document and your friend has read it, or you believe they've read it, and they tell you something that's not so, you're inclined to believe them. So as long as our community conversation is about misrepresentation, we are never going to get a general plan approved. With the last general plan, folks came the night we sent it to the voters. We went through an extensive citizens task force, citizen outreach. Citizens came to City Hall the night we sent it to the voters and asked us to make, I can't remember, 6 or 7 changes. We made 6 of those changes. And then the people who came and requested the changes campaigned against the plan for lots of other reasons. So while we were listening to the citizens, we made the changes they asked us to make, and yet still folks went out and misrepresented and created fear that wasn't appropriate. And so while I think we need to continue to make it clear and easily understood, we need to include citizen input, I think that the whole conversation is tainted with misinformation, and we may never be able to get a general plan approved.
Volunteers?
Give me a microphone.
Mr. Smith?
2 things. I'm not going to second guess what should be in the general plan. The folks are still drafting that, and I respect their rights to change it, whatever. But I'm not sure it's relevant to why the one failed the last time. Let's talk about that. And I'll say right up front, I supported the general plan the last time. I thought it was a pretty good vision statement. But here's, I think, the problem. The folks up here have said, you know, the document's too long, you can't read it. That's probably true. The people didn't read it. So if they didn't read the document, what were they voting against? I submit that what they were voting against wasn't the document at all. There's nothing wrong with the document. What they were voting against was the execution against that document, and even the execution against the existing general plan. What they were saying to the council was, how can you be building all of these big, tall buildings? How can you be bringing more people in and changing the demographics of the city? How can you be changing or creating an entertainment district that is not something that was ever our vision, how can you be undermining tourism, the bedrock of our economic foundation in this city? That's the message they were sending. I don't think they were voting on the general plan at all. I think it was a mandate to the council to start following the vision of the citizens. And no matter what the folks write this time around, I think the citizens are going to vote again with a mandate to the council. Follow our vision. Listen to our voice. I said at the outset, we're trying to build a city here on a foundation that all of you have created, and hopefully we'll respect your views and your vision, what has given us the city we have today. If we stray away from that, we shouldn't be surprised that every submission the council gives is voted down.
Ms. Littlefield.
Okay, the general plan lays out the path or the direction that the citizens of Scottsdale want Scottsdale to take in moving forward to the future. They realize Scottsdale's going to change, it's going to grow, and they're setting forth the direction that they want to see their city grow in. It should embody the community's vision and provide guidance to the council on land use, and provide protection for their neighborhoods and their quality of life. The lack of that protection over the last few years, I believe, is the reason the previous general plan failed. Citizens were afraid that those protections in the plan were not strong enough to endure against the developers and the special interests who go before the council time after time and get changes to the land use and the plan, and their neighborhoods are not protected. I think that's why the last one failed, and I think if the current one fails, that will be why it fails also. I hope that the people on the task force make it strong enough and use the language that is strong enough that the citizens can find it good enough to pass. I do not support it yet, because I've been to the task force meetings night after night, listening to them, and they are using ways and words that do not strengthen the general plan. They use words like could, or may, or might, maybe, instead of words like will, or are, or is, or shall. You need to have words, strong, effective words that the citizens can look at that and say, my neighborhood will be protected, my parks will be protected, and know that this document is strong enough that the council has to say no when it has to say no. You have to have something that's strong enough to do that. Every time a developer goes before the council and gets what they want, what you're saying is we have no general plan. All we have is a piece of paper that's a cover for what they want to do.
Councilman Robbins. Oh, I'm sorry, I saw him grab the microphone. Ms. Hill.
Okay. I will keep my answer brief. Actually, I believe that Mr. Smith really hit upon something very important, and that is trust. And I believe that the general plan will continue to fail if there is no trust for the council. And that is what's happening right now. So no matter what is put in that document, I believe people don't trust the council right now, so they're not going to trust what is being put out there. So I do agree with him on that piece of it. The thing that I would add, if I was to add to the 2001 document, when that was created, there was no infill incentive districts then. We were not at build out. So that document actually still has some gaps in it because, it's now, what's it, 2001? That's what, 14, 15 years later. We really, need to be updating and making sure that the provisions that we're putting out there, are accounted for with all the changes that we have in our city. So there do need to be changes plus state mandates that have to be written into a new general plan. But I think that's really important that when it was created, those, we still didn't anticipate how much Scottsdale was going to grow. And I also would like to, before I actually make a decision on the 2001 I guess it was 14, now 15, 16 general plan that we're looking at. I would like to see the implementation phase finished before I could actually make a decision on whether that should be approved or not, because that needs to be done.
Now, Councilman Robbins.
Thank you. So interestingly, the plan that we're under right now is 2001. It was passed in 2001. And when I was on my first term of the council, from 96 to 2000, I was part of the city council that put that to the voters. So I had a hand in developing that last general plan that we're still working underneath. And it was interesting, one of the thoughts was after this last general plan failed was, well, why don't we just take the 2001, since everybody seems to like it, add a couple state mandates that have changed and requirements and put that to the voters, which I actually supported, but many people said, no, we don't want to do that, because there's some things in the 2001 plan they don't like. So I think if everybody can find things they probably don't like in the general plan. But let's think about what it actually is. People talked about it's a vision for Scottsdale, which it is. But it's not a zoning code. We have that as well. That's different. So people, I think, are misleading you into thinking that they can control certain things with the general plan, which they can't. That's what the zoning code is for. And also keep in mind, when people say we don't follow the general plan, that's nonsense. You know you can only change the general plan by law once a year. We have one meeting a year where you can change the general plan. So we don't have constant changes to the general plan. That's completely erroneous. So when people say we're not following it, that's wrong. And normally when we have that once a year meeting to change the general plan, there's usually only 1 or 2 cases that come to the council. There's not, you would think if we only do something once a year, there'd be 20 cases. 20 times we change the general plan. That's not happening. So I think there is a lot of misinformation about the general plan, what it is, what it isn't, how we change it, when we follow it. And so you really have to look beyond the rhetoric, beyond the people that want to be elected, and see what's actually happening with the general plan, because we are following the document. You can only change it once a year, and if you want to be involved in part of the process and learn what it's more about, it's all on the website. There's tons of information, and it's your document because you approve it, and then we implement it. And so what the citizens want, that's what we're going to follow.
Who are we missing? That was it. Okay, well, let me do this. We've got a lot of great questions left. However, we don't have a lot of time left. So, and we decided we would start from the other end coming back for closing statements, but since Councilman Robbins just spoke, let me give some closing comments of my own and give everyone a chance to think of a quick minute-long closing comment if they'd like to make. First and foremost, great questions from the crowd. I wish we could have gotten all of them. We tried to get to as many topics as we could. If you have a question that you want to ask that was not answered, after the meeting's over, pounce. Find your candidate or candidates and ask them. The second thing I would suggest is there's another forum tomorrow night, and it's up at the Via Linda Senior Center, not too far from here. If you have time, please attend that as well. Encourage anybody you know that lives in the area or that is interested for them to please attend that forum as well. I also want to say we certainly thank the candidates for being here and taking the time to do this. And very much so, thank you to all of you. It is an informed and active citizenry that really determines where the city goes. So certainly appreciate all of you being here. And so without any further, we'll start with our closing statements. And Councilman Robbins, have you had a moment to think about it?
Yes. Thank you. Okay.
I ran for council 4 years ago because I wanted to make a difference. 4 years ago, Scottsdale did face some pretty significant challenges. Hotel occupancy rates were at an all-time low. Sales tax revenues have been declining for 3 straight years. We faced a $28 million budget deficit. Now, 4 years later, we have closed that budget deficit. We actually put $13 million extra into our capital budget this year, so we have a balanced, sustainable budget. Hotel occupancy rates have rebounded, and sales taxes have been up for the last 36 plus months. So over 3 years, sales taxes have been increasing, which pays for all the things that we use as citizens. So I think that our fiscal responsibility, the vision for the future, has completely changed the way it looked like 4 years ago. Certainly from a fiscal standpoint, from a budget standpoint, we weathered the recession, we didn't cut city services, and I'm extremely proud of that. Now, as we move forward, there's a lot of things challenges facing the city that I want to meet head on. And I think with the citizenry and the things that we've done in the past, we can certainly tackle those issues in the future. And I certainly want to be a part of that. It's been a joy and an honor to serve you the last 4 years, and I look for your vote for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Robbins. Ms. Littlefield.
Thank you all for coming and sharing your concerns about Scottsdale with us. Scottsdale is a very special city and a very beautiful one, but more importantly, it's our home and very precious to each and every one of us. I have spent the last 12 years alongside my husband traveling the length and breadth of Scottsdale, listening to you, the residents, and hearing what is important to you and to your quality of life. I've attended and listened to you through many neighborhood meetings, and I have heard your concerns. I've gone to police and fire meetings, went through the Citizens Police Academy, toured our water plant, and listened to the explanations of how it worked. I even took a tour of our solid waste department facilities to better understand how it functions. I have attended state and valley-wide association meetings to gain a wider perspective on various concerns and interests across the valley on things that may impact Scottsdale. And I believe I have gained a unique perspective, which I will use for the benefit of Scottsdale residents to enhance their well-being and quality of life. I bring to the council an understanding of the issues and a genuine commitment to serve you, the citizens of Scottsdale. Thank you, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you, Ms. Littlefield. Ms. Peterson.
Okay, thank you all for coming. This has been wonderful, lots of information shared, lots of great questions, comments, positive thoughts shared. The reality is, they're all great candidates up here. You just need to determine who struck a chord with you, who you feel you can identify with, and who will possess a thought process that you agree with. I'm asking for your vote because I have experience on the dais. I represented you and the children of our city for 8 years. I've got a track record, a proven track record of success on the school board. I'm not afraid to lead. I'm also not afraid to make tough decisions. I bring all of my experience with a fresh perspective to the city council. I want what we all want here. We all want jobs, a good economy, good schools, and our quality of life to be maintained or enhanced. Please vote for me, Jennifer Peterson. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Schaffner, and thank all of you for coming out tonight. I see some of you are taking notes, and I hope when you go home, I took notes too, I hope when you go home and read your notes, you'll realize some of the statements made here and reflect on them. We don't control businesses. It's a free market. We have to let the businesses do what makes sense for them. We need new housing to renovate downtown, although the latest housing project was up at the air park, which seems a far distance from downtown. We have businesses to thank for the prosperity that we have here in the city. The reason the general plan failed, it was too long to read. The entertainment district generates other income, and that's a true statement, actually. They pay a lot of fines before they leave town because they generate. I encourage you to look through the statements and figure out who is actually going to be more attuned to your visions. I think you'll find I am. I think you'll find I can deal with the financial issues facing the city, and I would certainly welcome your vote and your support.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Ms. Hill.
Well, thank you again for all being here tonight. I hope I answered your questions. I would love to